Hey there YouTube, it's Raijinku here. Today I'm bringing you a deck profile of my Leviathan Tempo control deck. I just took first at my locals with it, and it actually proved to be quite a fun deck. So I'm just going to go through, explain some of my choices, and just how it did with what I used. First of all, I used 3 Aqua Striders. Main reason for that is just because you need some early blockers in case you play against Rush. And also later on it helps because it can get pretty beefed up with Tritonus, which obviously we'll get to later. I chose to run 2 logo scans because the deck draws a ton as it is. This really doesn't need a whole lot of extra draw power, but it helps me get to some extra answers early. I ran 2 Mesmerizes instead of 3 just because in case I was running into this guy, Keeper of Laws. Also, it pretty much just took care of things when I needed it to. I mean, if they played Crystal Memory, I could always get what they went after, but usually it was just to establish more presence and control in the early game, because generally this deck doesn't get anything on board till around turn 3 or 4. Then we have Aqua Seneschal. I only run 2 of him again because of the draw thing, and also later on I generally don't like to have too many level 4s out. I run 3 Crystal Memories. I actually chose to use this over Head Spy Mission in here. Because this is a control deck, it's actually more beneficial to be able to search out what you need in your deck. So it was really, really helpful, and of course, Shield Blast is amazing, so. Alright, then I have 3 Keeper of Laws. It just deals with a lot of things. I mean, spells, control mirror matchups, whatever. In this deck, though, it's generally used to give me a guy that has protection from spells my opponent would play, so. Moving on. I have 3 Rusalkas. Rusalka is just a great card in general, and being able to bounce any one creature on the board is really good for this deck. So it also helps create the tempo, things with Aqua Seneschal, so on and so forth. I run 3 Piercing Judgments. Again, that's more along the lines to deal with bigger creatures. Occasionally I'll tap down something so I can swing over it, but usually I use it more for a removal spell or for mana fixing. Okay, I've got 3 Bone Blades. Just basic removal for early plays. And of course, if it gets hit in Shield Blast, whatever. It takes care of Rush, takes care of just early plays in general. If I'm playing against another control deck, generally it'll go to my Mana Zone because of my other combos. Alright, 3 Bottles of Wishes, which, by the way, if you can see here, this one's miscut severely. But I run 3 Bottle of Wishes just because, in case I play against Rush, there's a ton of great targets in this deck, and I'm not just talking about Tritonus, but overall it's a really good card, pretty much any time it hits. Now we're getting to some of the tech cards of the deck. King Neptas ×3. Actually quite an amazing card, especially when you're playing other Leviathans as well. So basically he hits board. What's even better is you got Keeper Laws out and then he hits board. It just allows for extra protection, and again he combos later on with other cards. But I'll go back to that in a second. I have 2 Grip of Despair. I really like this card. I honestly think I would possibly get this up to 3. But, I don't want to flood my level 5 spots with tons of stuff. But easy removal for bottle targets, same deal with Piercing Judgment, so. Alright, moving on. I have 1 Wave Lancer. Main reason for this is because it's a blocker, 5500 power, and has remount. So if it dies in any way, it can go back to your hand. Which sets up amazing combos with this guy, which again, I'll come back to in a second. Okay, so then I have General Finbarr. Again, keeps that reverse pressure on your opponent, I guess you want to call it. So basically, You bounce their guy on turn 4, possibly turn 5, depending on what you're using. Turn 6 as well, and then on top of that, every time one of your guys attacks, you draw a card too. So I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. Moving on to 7s, Terror Pit, pretty standard. Basically removal for big guys. All the little guys are pretty easy to deal with, so not much else to talk about there. Now, one of the kings of the deck, no pun intended, is King Coral, in case you haven't seen his effect. Okay. Basically, whenever one of my Leviathans enters the battle zone, I return all creatures level 4 or less from the battle zone to the owner's hands. In this deck, it's really, really good. The only thing that's a little sketchy is sometimes when I have like my Keeper Laws out, but honestly, that's usually the only bad time. It basically says, hey, I'm going to remove your blockers from the board, which is really good. So it gets rid of Keeper Laws especially, but it also gets rid of Aqua Strider, Lemons, just in general stuff like that. And what makes it even better is I run, I think it's 11 Leviathans in this deck. So every time I play a card like, Wave Lancer, I bounce everything back. So even if they kill off Wave Lancer, I can just keep playing him over and over again. And it gives you a lot of shenanigans to play with. Another one of my combos I really like with this card is actually using it with cards like Rusalka. For example, if you have enough mana, which in the games I played, I ended up having tons of mana. You play Rusalka, you bounce one of their big creatures or something. You play King Coral, you bounce all their little creatures, and you bounce back your Rusalka. So you essentially create this like almost infinite loop. It's pretty fun. One of the things I want to actually consider trying to the deck is actually including more cards like Fumes, or I believe it's Reef Scout, just cards that have enter the battlefield as like effects. So basically I'll be discarding, bouncing their guys, and just overall gaining an advantage, especially since I can just use it over and over again. But yeah, overall it's been a really great card. For my 8 costs, I have Skull Shatter, because I bounce a ton of stuff back to the hand all the time. This card actually can be really, really good. I actually comboed this one time with this card. Yes, I actually had enough mana to get there. Just because honestly, the game got drug out so long, and since I was bouncing stuff pretty much all day, I just had my board was just ridiculous. I had like 2 or 3 Neptas on board, like a Keeper out and whatnot. Only reason it actually progressed that long is because they already had an Andromeda or 2 hit, so I kind of had to work through it until I got to my comfortable spot in the game. But Waterspout is an amazing card as well. You can combo him with Rusalka, so you can bounce back your Waterspout, and then you can always King Coral, and then you can bounce back your Rusalka. And I mean, you can do like crazy shenanigan plays like that all the time. But generally, this guy is meant to bounce like your bigger creatures, like the Infernus, Andromeda if you have to, Tritonus, so on and so forth. So, I mean, whatever you need to bounce, he takes care of it, and then later on you can just reuse him, which is really good. And again, you can also combo that with Piercing Judgment too. So, plenty of combos there. Squillace Scourge I run 2 of. Believe it or not, if any of you are aware of Jerry Thompson, shout-outs there. One of these, I'm not 100% sure which one it is, but one of these is his that he used in the KMC in Pennsylvania. I actually lent it to him, so yeah. So yeah, shout-outs to Jerry Thompson, Jerry T, whatever. Really cool card, especially when you combo it with King Coral, because you're the turn player. You choose which effects to activate and how they resolve. So basically you play a Scourge, you can bounce back all their blockers and stuff like that, and then you can play, you can use Scourge's effect, discard their entire hand, basically. So it's really good that way. Oh, and their field, obviously. 2 Andromeda, I probably would be running 3, but there's a couple of stipulations. I traded one of mine, so I need to get a third one again. And then also, I ran a 50-card deck, mainly because I only had 50-card sleeves to work with, so I don't know that I'd want to go any higher than that, but 2 Andromeda seemed to work just fine. I didn't like drag games out like ridiculously long, but long enough. He put in the extra pressure and gave me extra protection when I needed it, so hey, he's not a bad card. And then of course the final Leviathan of the deck, 3 King Tritonus. Just a really great card, especially since I get him out like every game. And on top of that, he boosts like so many of the creatures. I mean, imagine having a King Neptas chilling with 9,000 power on board, can't be targeted, or even a 8,000 blocker or a 9,500 blocker in the form of Wave Lancer that just keeps coming back. So, just overall really amazing cards. They have to get rid of this or it just gets really, really crazy. But again, every time you play Leviathan, again, there's 11 in the deck. You're bouncing creatures because of King Coral. And overall, this deck is just a lot of fun. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it. And I mean, like I said, I might make some changes. I'm going to go to another tournament and I'm going to try using some fumes and stuff like that instead of maybe some spells. So yeah, I'll let you guys know how that works. And remember to comment, rate, subscribe. Check out Team Ragnarok's channel as well, in case this gets put up on one of those channels. I don't know. But enjoy. Make sure to check those out. And until next time, guys, keep calm and game on.